Is it enough that I am myself in a world that is not self? This is a really deep thing to think about.
Welcome, Talis, to That's Your Trip podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. And for those who don't know, Talis is a 1-3 mental projector with abstraction on the right angle across the vessel of love. And
Exactly.
we have known each other in the online space almost since I created my account. Thomas was one of the first people that found me and connected us through the network. And so it's so good to talk to you because I feel like we've just kind of come up through the ranks together, and seeing your progress, seeing your growth is really inspiring and truly deserved. I mean, I feel like you deserve a lot more recognition,
Thank you.
but I get the projector struggle of just like, okay, I'm here. I'm here when you're ready. So, oh, and I did have a question. I have a question for you, and we're probably gonna chop this bit. Um, your song, "Yeah, I'm a projector. Come on, invite
Yeah.
me." Can we use that for your episode and like cut it in?
Yeah, yeah,
I think my guy Brian can do that, but I
for
love
sure.
that song. I think that song is so cool.
You can use that, yeah.
Okay,
I think
cool.
so.
I'm curious. We talked a little bit about like some of your other creative projects that you've got going on. Do you want to share with us what you've been doing?
So right now there's a lot of stuff going on, but specifically when it's about the English field, because I'm, doing it in German and in English. In English, it's a lot about the human design comments. So a lot of my creativity goes into the human design comments, and on my Substack page, those are the two big things where I invest my energy, kind of, where I can guide. In the human design comments, there's this new feed where all the people kind of, after they became a member, they get into this feed, and then yeah, it's more like administration. I
Yeah.
let them be, but I guide them like, hey, there's a section for this, and please don't post this there, and kind of giving them some direction.
Some guidance. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
awesome. You've had so many creative projects and you have an app, right? You guys have Bodygraph IO.
exactly. Yeah,
That's amazing. It is
there's
so
so
hard
many
to,
projects.
yeah, yeah. And you guys have community funding that you raise. It's incredible to watch. And I don't know if you can see it, but the patch that you made, the little
Yeah, yeah,
hexagram
yeah,
patch, is right there. I
yeah.
love
Nice.
that patch so much. I couldn't decide what clothes it goes on, so it's in my permanent background.
Yeah, I had the same with the raw set patch that I had, and then
Yep.
at one moment I just gave it to a really good friend, to a 4 or 6 friend, because it was like, oh, that's so nice. Like, okay,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah. That's such a creative idea. And they were such nice quality. I'm like, I need more. I do need more.
Yeah, it's just, the project, Be Your Own Authority Buy Away store is just put on ice for now, as, Thomas is pretty logical. I have a lot of logical hanging gates, more than I have abstract gates, funny enough.
Mm. Yeah,
And
I
it's
have very
always,
few.
it needs funding, this is the thing, and it's not that easy. Logic always is like craving for those funds to make that stuff happen.
Yep.
And this is really what we are doing in the last almost 3 years with our project that is now, has the name of Human Design Commons. In the beginning, it was just Thomas came to me and kind of invited me, and then something happened, and this and that, and different things, and now it's an association.
Yeah, you guys seem to be a really good team. He's a really good builder. You're a really good guide. And you guys have been kind of
Yeah,
solid for a long time
it
with some
really works.
incredible
Yeah.
things that you're making and doing for the community, which is why I wanted you on here to kind of, show people this is what's going on. Do you know about these people? This is awesome. you
Yeah.
know? And of course, you guys have the raw quotes, Instagram,
Ross
very
said
popular.
exactly.
Raw said, yes. Do you
That's
guys
really
have
rocking.
anything? Yeah, it really is. I think it has
Even on,
more
on
followers
Twitter,
than
I
me.
see it. I see it everywhere. It's on
Yeah.
Twitter. It's on Facebook. Repost this and that. Wow, it's really going through the roof. I
Yeah,
never
that's
thought about that.
amazing. It makes sense. It makes sense. There's really good like content creation, and you guys are using the AI software. And I've been really into the AI software as well. So I'm really impressed with what you guys are doing with it, with the animations and the audios, you know.
Yeah.
Do you guys have anything else planned with AI that you're doing?
We have our when you enter our human design commons and you're in the registration process, there is a kind of AI helper that you can ask questions, and we fed them with all of the information. So that means you can get all of the answers you're looking for before you finally become a member and pay the amount that you know need to pay for an association to be a member for a year. So that you can just type your questions, or you can uh, choose different things, and you will get a response that is pretty accurate. Almost feels like there is somebody writing you. Also, a really nice thing, and we will spread some reels in the next couple of weeks. It's still in the process of making, but as an exclusive. In the Human Design Commons, the people who are in there right now, they can enjoy our app, and in that app, there is another app that's called GutGo. And this is for generators, and we're using AI, and we're using a copy of my voice, and they get asked questions with my voice frequency, and they can get 3 questions and then can type, okay, this is the thing that I want to know more about, and then they generate more questions about that. And so it really helps them. So we
Wow.
experimented with that, and most generators say, wow, man, it's so amazing. It really helps me over the day, because sometimes I just don't know, and I cannot ask myself and this and that, and I cannot just call somebody, and it helps them to have relief. So I would not recommend to use this all the time to know what to do, but it gives them some, it helps them bypass all of this mind stuff,
Yeah. And gives them questions to just cut through to respond to.
Yeah, and maybe even
That's
reconnect.
amazing. That's absolutely
Yeah.
incredible. I have seen that there are some people that are using chat gbt to kind of, they're feeding it for their human design clients, so that questions they get on their Facebook or their social media, they can kind of prompt it and it'll answer, and they're feeding it tons of human design information. And I haven't figured out how to do that yet, but I'm so curious about that. And it seems to be like picking things up, picking up the keynotes. And I'm so curious about the frequency, if it's an AI generated voice of your voice, because one of my hacks for listening to source material is I put all of my books on my computer, all the PDFs. I have the settings that it reads to me. So I'm not
Mhm.
just reading it and taking it in with my eyes. I'm listening to everything 24/7, even though it is that computer, animated
Yeah, yeah.
voice. But I have not doubted the frequency, because I have the information. It's there, and I can, it feels like, yeah, it feels like I've definitely taken stuff in. I get tired after listening to a couple pages, So I was very curious about that. But in my experience and how many PDFs I've listened to from my computer voice, I feel like, yeah, there's something to that. There's definitely something to, it's a synthetic frequency, but it's still a frequency through delivering the keynotes, you
We
know?
we actually we actually kept it a bit synthetic,
Yeah.
as it can be. Yeah, I mean, the possibility is there that it really 99% sounds like my voice.
Yeah.
It is there, and it's not expensive. It's really cheap. The API stuff that you can use for
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
those services. But until now, I was like, let's stick with this, because it still is an app. It shouldn't be too human. Thomas and I, we talk a lot about this AI, and we have some kind of also an alarming side about this.
Yes.
Because what happens right now, and what I see, and maybe this is also an interesting topic to talk about. What I saw is there's a lot of services popping up right now that claim to be your decision maker as an AI. There are services you can pay that make your
Really?
decisions. You post,
No
you connect your
way.
phone with it. You connect you upload your wallet of how much money, income, this and that, and they help you make decisions. You shouldn't buy this. You should go there. This is a good store. There's a discount here. Oh, you didn't pay your, this, and this can be really, really
Wow.
tricky.
Yeah, that reminds me of that Black Mirror episode.
Yeah,
But like, I believe it because the dating apps that they have where you're dating like basically a bot, but there's so much like emotional information that you're feeding it that it knows what to tell you back. Man,
mm.
that is very interesting. I had no idea, but it makes sense. I mean, people are kind of worshiping the AI chatbots as if they are kind of the all-knowing, all-seeing
Yeah,
way
yeah,
to kind of do things rather than, yeah, just continuing to use it as a tool, you know? Oh, that is so
for
fascinating.
sure, for
And
sure.
I remember the one that you guys did with Raw, where it was a clip that I had never heard that clip of Raw speaking. And I was like, where did this come from? And it took me kind of a minute to register. It was the AI voice software, but it was it was 99% him, but there was just a
Yeah, yeah.
smidge that it's like, yeah. But it
And
was,
it's so dangerous because we just took, I
yeah,
don't know, 30 seconds of his voice. You don't need to upload hours and hours. It's really just,
really,
yeah, it's
oh
crazy.
my gosh, that's mind-boggling. That's incredible.
So in a lot of things that we do, Thomas and I, uh, in the HCC, or just what I do, there's a lot of social criticism in this. I mean, it
Mm,
comes with humor and, with some
yes,
vesseling.
yes, yes.
But when you look closer, there's always a message.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you guys have made a lot of waves in the community. I definitely have too. I've definitely put some waves out there. But I mean,
Nice.
hey, we're desire motivation. We're going to do that
For
when we're
sure.
passionate, right? And
We're
you're
we're both
also,
passive desire, right?
yeah, we're both receptive desire and we're both calm.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I love when one of my friends he talks about kind of like the binaries of the determination motivation. So we'd be calm desire.
I'm nervous. I'm sorry. I'm nervous. Just
Oh my gosh, that's right. I thought, oh my gosh.
sorry.
Oh, that's right.
Just
I
took me a minute
totally,
there.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
totally
fine.
forgot. So you be nervous desire.
Nervous desire, yeah. But I feel very calm. It's not
Yeah.
about that I'm nervous.
Yeah. I never feel like it's like that, like some of those keynotes. It's not that homogenized definition of the language. It's like stimulating desire,
Yeah,
stimulated
that's fitting.
desire. Yeah. And I love when
I
Ra
love
talks about,
stimulation.
yeah, I don't.
Oh, nice.
I love when Ron talks about our motivation with follower trajectory. And it's really like this really passionate and fiery desire, but that receptivity, he talks about letting life create the movement for the motivation. And I'm just like, I love that. That gives me so much peace because I'm pretty neutral on things until something comes up and then it's like, oh, there it is. Do you feel that? Does that
Yeah.
resonate with you too?
Yeah, totally. I can
Yeah.
be, looking at my wall for 3 hours and then suddenly something comes my way, maybe a message, maybe there's a sound outside that reminds me or what, and it can be anything
Yeah.
that stimulates me because, I need this stimulation. And then there's something opening up in me. And especially if there's people who show me new things, I'm abstract, so this new thing is always like, okay, I want to explore this. I can really feel there's something ignites in me. Like there's a spark, and then
Yeah.
either it will become an obsession, or I can get bored and then I ditch it.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally resonate with that. Plus, I have the ego, and it's like the willpower either joins up and joins in with it, and authority is a yes, or it's just like the fire
Mm.
is just kind of extinguished. And then I'm curious with your abstraction and that mental activity with the desire. I'm curious your experience of that. I'm always curious because I feel like you are one of the projectors that feels really correct, really embodied. And that's not, especially mental projectors, that's not something I'm seeing a lot these days.
Mm.
So I'm curious to know your embodied experience with that abstraction channel.
The channel for me, it's unconscious. It's an
Yeah.
unconscious channel for me. Nevertheless, I see it in the reflection of my outside, of the outside, and also retrospectively when I have my moments. I have my moments where I just need to lay down. Where it's not about sleeping. It's more like it's too much. Okay, my body wants to just process now, and then I lay down and it goes like da, 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 and I see all of this. Yeah, it's really like imagery and visuals and
Mm.
mandalas and whatever. It looks really like a kaleidoscope. And then
Mm.
after like 20 minutes, there's a click, and then I have a new drop of meaning. It almost feels like alchemy. There's like this sweet honey drop that comes like, okay. And I got something more out of an experience that maybe is 10 years ago.
Wow.
It's not
Yeah.
about, okay, every day. It's not about
Yeah.
that. It can be anything. So it's really surreal sometimes.
Yeah.
But what I feel with this connected to my desire, to my outer authority of acceptance desire, is especially what I bring.
Mm.
I'm very good with people who have problems in the emotional realm. Um, so whenever there's a lot of people coming to me who have issues with being alone, who feel lonely and don't know where and what and how, or kids who feel rejected by other kids, or all of the weird people, the freaks. This is really. I mean, when I sit somewhere, it's not the normal people coming to me, approaching me. It's always the weird freaks, the people who are very intellectual, very smart, but just super lost. And
Yeah.
I bring this back to this channel because this abstraction I can give them some kind of, together with my 11, some, yeah, some mental peace. I can
Mm.
really use my voice to calm them and kind of bring them back to their body, and sometimes even, depends on their definition, but sometimes give them some kind of direction what what their life could be. It's
Yeah.
because my 46, and this is there, and it's very very much connected to the body, and I can sense that in the other. It's like, hey, maybe, have you ever tried to do some kung fu? And they're like,
Hmm.
how do you know that? I would love, I always dreamed about that. And it was like, yeah. It's really sometimes just a knowing.
Yeah. The projector knows. You
Yeah.
can see. Yeah, that's amazing. And it's also, I love that you speak to the moment of clarity when Rod talks about like this clarity and this mental channel. It's a very different kind of clarity from emotionals, but I'm like, there's still that providing of some clarity and some needed wisdom. And your throat, your voice, like your throat center, I feel like there's a lot of wisdom there in that throat, because obviously people have a lot of comments about your voice and your frequency and how popular it is and how you do these audio guides for people, which has been really interesting. You do just audio readings sometimes, right?
I also offer that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really interesting to explore. Plus,
I
I
have no idea what
remember,
it is actually. Actually, I have no idea what it is about my voice, but there is something, you know. There is something about it, and I love to use my voice since I'm young. I did soundboarding when I was 3. I have a
yeah.
memory of that when I
Oh,
just
interesting.
was sitting in my room and recording cassette after cassette with all of the things that went on in my head. Sometimes it was more like in a singing
Wow.
way, sometimes it was more in a rhyming thing. From, I don't know, it's really like the words have, it's not meaning, but there is substance in it. There is some kind of connection to color, to emotions, to so many things that it's almost like it is in front of me. And when I just let go, this vehicle uses those things and paints a picture. It's really interesting to
That's
observe
incredible.
and listen to.
Yeah. It's like my 4323. It's like watching that is just such a trip sometimes. And I'll have these insights that just drop in, and it feels like everything else just kind of, it feels like it breaks my brain a little bit. Like my brain can't actually like, it's not coming from my brain. So the insight is there. And then we're just trying to like, oh, this is what and just like that moment. And then trying to bring it
Yeah.
through. It's really funny to watch the mental definition for sure. That's amazing that you were soundboarding at such a young age. That is so, and like even on your Instagram, you recently just archived like tons of posts, right? And you can just
4,000.
see 4,000 posts. Wow. You can see that mental activity of just like stuff coming through and just having those moments. And yeah, I'm so glad you did that because I do know, like, in terms of like the algorithm, it is better to have less posts because it makes you like more accessible for, I don't know. I don't know. But I don't think everybody deserves to have access to every single thing you've posted. There's so much wisdom in there, and so much gets lost when there's so much, you know? So you can bring those back and put those somewhere that, you know, they can get real recognition. I love that you archived it and didn't delete because,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. You
yeah,
know, I need that archive. It's not like that I just wanted to get rid of them because I don't like it anymore. It was
yeah,
more, it felt, first of all, it felt correct. And I talked about this with many people. And lately there was this one friend who visited me, a 5-1. And I talked with him about this. And yeah, he could really deliver me a practical why, you know. And then I was like, yeah, okay. And he helped me a bit, you know. He supported me with his energy, like I can this and this, and so it was time to let that go for the public
yeah,
viewers
yeah,
because it was too much. It was really too much. It was nobody ever scrolled down to the end. How? It's just impossible. Now it's possible, and I'm uh, retreating a bit from Instagram um, posting things. I use my story here and there, yeah.
yeah,
But I have this new Substack thing. Manifestor initiated me to try this, and you know, my third line say, okay, why not? Let's just try.
yeah,
And it is really nice. I really love that platform. It is so. It really suits me. I love writing. I always love to do that, but I never had. Instagram is not the right. You know, it takes me so much energy to
yeah,
create that blah, and it's
yep,
so it's not efficient. You know.
yeah. Yeah, I see a lot of projectors who are just pumping out this content, and I'm like, true, like written embodied content does not just like flow so fast, you know, and to just really take your time with it. And I see you doing that, but also you've had years to add to that. You know, you've been very active for years in the human design
Yeah, yeah.
community. So I just thought that was so great. And I feel like it's a really good, like, having that archive is literally like a little mini library of like what's in your vault, what's in that receptive vault, you know? I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, I feel like with my right mind, you know, it always surprises me when I even go back and look at my posts and I'm like, I did that. Wow.
Yes, I have the same feeling. Sometimes I see something like, "What? I did what? This is my intellect? Really?"
Yeah.
It's often I don't remember that I wrote this, and
Oh yeah.
that's I don't know.
Yeah. Same thing. I'll be in a session and I'll say something. And if something disrupts me, I'm like, what was I saying? It was, you know, I'm unconscious 43, you know, so what's going on up there, I'm not always privy to. And when it's coming through and when I can just let it come through and catch it, and then I see it on the other, I'm like, oh, wow,
Yeah,
that was me. But I feel like that's a very common experience for projectors when we're in flow.
yeah. When we're in the flow, people pick their pants and write stuff down, right?
Yeah.
That's my
I
my
mean,
observation.
yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
Mm,
nice.
so funny. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. I'm glad other people can relate to that because I'm always like, is there something wrong with me? Why can't I remember what I just said?
Mm,
But I feel like that's the nature of receptive variables up top, right?
for sure. I mean, my brother has left mind
Mm,
and left brain, I think. And my brother is like my best friend. Really, we always had a very good relationship. So he spent a lot of time with me doing stuff when he was still a bit younger. But I said, why not? Let's go out and do this, and you can be part of it. When he was, I don't know, 14, and I was uh 20, a little bit, yeah, 2021. And so he kind of remembers everything. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. But and there's a photo, and he already, he's like this crazy mind that can remember what T-shirt he wore last year on a birthday or something. Like, what the man?
Wow.
I cannot access this. Like when
Yeah.
there is a conversation about this, yeah, okay, then I can remember
Yeah.
visually, but I cannot access. So this is always wow. I think this is incredible to have that, to see that, and the connection of this is beautiful. When I'm with left mind people, and it's
Yeah.
just like this wow going on storm of information just comes out of me, and it's wow.
Yeah. It's funny because I just had the opposite experience with my receptive mind and my friend Laura, Sacral Journal. And we were talking about another human design app, and it shows like these stats, and it showed all these six color in her design, and not just her cross, but it pulled from me. I'm like, oh, I remember you did a reading with Talis like years ago, and he talked about all the six colors in your cross, and I was like, is that did that? And she's like, yes.
What?
How long ago was that? But I've like it immediately pulled the story that she posted, and I was just like, cool, good job, Talis. I love seeing my projectors successful, but like that it pulled that specific moment. This was like last week. I was like,
Hmm.
wow, wow.
Insane,
So
huh?
yeah, and I would have never, I don't know that. I don't feel like I know that, but we just had such a laugh because I was like, oh my God, wow. So it's sometimes, and then on the other side of that, I feel like the more I decondition, the more that receptive part of me is just getting stronger and feeling nourished, which means there's like less access to certain things. So I hate this word, but I feel like ditzier, just a little bit more like spacey than I've notoriously been my whole life. But it always was very strategic conditioning, and have to know these things, have to memorize these things, have to study these things, and do your bullet points and take all your notes. But kind of embracing, for me, the left brain, right mind of it has been very interesting. And I feel like that receptivity part has just become stronger, but I feel like I have less knowing, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Okay. What else I want to talk to you about? If it feels like I'm just getting promotey, that's my 4426. I kind of want to sell you to the tribe and sell everything that you're doing. So this is
I'm
great.
fine
And
with
this
that.
is
Give me all the
cool.
resources.
Cool. Great. Let me just influence people to come to you and book with you, right? Because
Yes.
that's really my agenda with the podcast, is to
I
just
actually
kind of
recently, last 2 months, it's really a dry 2 months for me. I don't
really.
know why, but a lot of people, they're postponing and postponing and unsure and blah.
Mm,
So I came, I don't know how it is for you as a projector, but for me, with all my openness and with this receptivity and like helplessness,
yeah.
this is really, even though it sounds helpless, it helps in a way, because this is something as a signpost that I can use. Like, okay, hey, be helpless. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that I need to pay rent tomorrow, and today I have 10 euros. Okay, but it will be okay. Somehow something will happen.
Yeah.
And this is really my training, and I do this for years. And every time the mind still comes back and really wants to screw me over, even though I know it's always good at the end. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It was interesting when it was slower for me at the beginning of the year, but also I wasn't putting a lot of energy into doing much, and I was settling in here, but I expected like the same kind of flow and invitations, but I was preparing my cave, and I was kind of like, oh wow, there's not a lot coming in right now. And then I got this offer, and it was for like this mini loan that had this really great, like um with my platform that I do all my payments on. And I was like, well, that's nice. And that kind of came at the right time. It was like $2,500. And I was like, okay, I can like kind of keep going and just keep resting and keep preparing. And it just out of nowhere. And I was like really nervous for a minute, like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And so it feels like, yeah, every time I just trust something comes in. And
Yeah.
I've appreciated that you've shared and been really honest and open about that part of your experience and your trip, because yeah, we're not guaranteed working on our own that this is going to be, there's what the bigger influencers are doing, but then there's the people who are more integral with it. And we don't have guaranteed income year round, there's definitely a flow and a flux. I
Absolutely.
definitely
And
experienced
most
that.
people don't even know how I live, you know. I have so many people who project on my only fifth line that I, live on an island and I have a nice car and I have a wife and I have a child and I have this nice house and this and that. I heard this so many times, and I'm tall and I'm muscular and what I don't know. It's so crazy what people project on me. If they would know that I'm traveling since 2017 without show, I traveled 2 years without money.
Yeah.
I slept
Yeah,
outside
that's
in the forest
right.
in a tent, people have no idea.
Yeah.
I really live my experiment radically, I
Yeah.
really do this. Whatever
Yeah.
comes. And
Yeah. It's the same for me. And I have 7/5 lines,
ay, ay, ay.
the most of any lines in my chart. So I can't imagine what people are projecting onto me. But yeah, similar. I've been dealing with stuff with my roommate. I was living with my parents for the end of the year because everything was going down. Um, Yeah, and it's really been a bumpy up and down ride of like having my own place, staying with friends, staying with my parents, and then like I was getting up on the roof leaving Paris. So like it's been a really bumpy ride for me, and just kind of like periods of just crashing with friends, and
Mhm.
I'm not that I hated that. I mean, we had some good times and I learned stuff because I had their designs, and it's just like that flow, just moving with life, and just trusting. I remember, who was it? It was on the Human Design Collective podcast, and I think it was an interview with, my cat is joining us now. Hi, baby. Um, I can't remember who it was, but they were talking about like, if it's correct for me to be homeless, then I'm going to be homeless, you know?
Yeah, I remember that part, but I don't know who said it.
Yeah. Um, we'll
Yeah,
put it in the notes. We'll figure
that,
it out
that
later.
doesn't matter.
But
Maybe it was.
the message stuck with me more than anything else, right? And I was just like, yeah, that's really radically living it. And how many people are afraid to live like that and are still making decisions from a place of financial need in human design, you
Yeah,
know?
for sure. Yeah, that's. I also think that's why we have all of those um, washed down human design pages, and I mean,
Yep.
there's so many pages right now. They popping up, and it's really this AI stuff
Yeah.
again. And this is, I mean, if you're new to human design, you think, yeah, that's fine. But there's so much
You have no
misinformation in
idea.
that, and it's really dangerous in my perspective.
Absolutely. Completely agree. Completely
Because
agree. It is dangerous.
learning new things is most of the time easy. But unlearning the things you learned,
Yeah.
like when you start with stuff like that, and then you actually figure out, oh, hold up, this something is wrong about this, and
Yeah.
then to unlearn, it's really hard.
Yeah. I mean, the majority of my clients come to me for corrections. That's just what people happen to need because they've been with Jenna Zoe, they've been with Lacey Phillips, they've done all those other things. And it's just kind of taken them completely down there. And they talk to me constantly about what they're unlearning, what they're figuring out was just bullshit, and how
Mm.
much of it and how deep and complex the system can be, and how the system is not as fragile as other people make it to be, and just like, oh,
Yeah.
Rod never said this and we don't have any evidence of this. We do. You just haven't gone deep enough to seek it.
I
And
almost found everything that people said, oh, this can't be in this. I have a library, and I know how to go through that, and I have my rightness helps me to, hold on, there was
Yeah.
something in this folder, and
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Plus, we have Sidereal making a comeback.
yeah, yeah,
And we were kind of there at the first uprise of Sidereal and kind of gave all of the evidence of why it's an incorrect version of the
absolutely,
system. And it's rampantly popular right now. There are so many accounts. There's people that comment on my posts and they're like, I'm a reflector, I'm a projector in Sidereal. And I'm like, okay, so you're not.
yeah. This
You're
is
just
all of
not.
this misinformation. It's really a pity. There's also misinformation about, my my body, my design side is a reflector. I'm actually, the quantum is a mental projector, but I'm just following my reflector strategy, not, like, stuff like that, where I'm just
Yeah.
like, hey, I mean, people say this with such certainty.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not that fierce anymore that I just, not my job. If
Yeah.
they ask me, okay, I will give something. If there is something people invite me to write about and have a yes, I do that. But it's not my thing anymore to really, put a spotlight on everything. I did
Yeah.
my is it pop or top on YouTube on the HTC? We had some episodes where I really went neutrally through the things and say, this and this, and without judging the person, but the
Yeah.
information that they bring out, that was really something that people loved. They said, wow, this is really good and it helps. And some others say, oh, how can you, how dare you? And, took it personally.
Yeah. Yeah. They're
But
just wrong.
it's something that I like. It is something that I like. I don't have a channel of correction, but it's still, I like to be precise.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't need channel of correction to be radical and true to the system, you know? And I'm the one that gets to correct them publicly,
I
which
just
I've
have the
done.
58,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
just to
I
drive for
definitely,
it.
I definitely need like help from my other friends of just like, okay, what else do we need to correct here? Because this is what I'm seeing. But having my other, like my collective, everybody's pressure of like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. I'm like, okay, we got it. But like, yeah, it's so interesting to watch these vastly incorrect systems just gain more and more. And I totally understand what you mean because I used to be like, oh, we need to stamp them all out. But I'm at the place now of like realizing that the people who are meant to come through those systems to the true system will and will work with us. And the people who aren't, that's their trip.
I mean, that's also one reason of why Human Design Commons was established.
Yeah.
It's not only, but it's one of the things why it became manifested, so to say.
Yeah.
Because people want to have a safe haven where they know they can just be without being judged about all of this stuff, and
Yeah.
where they have source material and where people are open to share, and where there will be tools that help you in your process, and a community that is, aspiring to be nine centered instead of seven centered, because Instagram is seven centered. It's not nine centered. Come on, everybody
Yeah.
knows that. So
Yeah.
of course, this is really tricky. The same thing that I tried offline in Portugal. It's a tricky thing. This is nothing that just works right away.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of effort and patience and determination and also courage to do that, to play around with, unfixed or independent variables that you have no idea about how they click together and what actually the puzzle will show you when the pieces are coming together. And I tried, and I still try here and there to make this, to make people remember that, this is
Yeah.
all an experiment. This is not an ideal,
Yeah.
and this is not a fixed thing. But it's so hard for people to grasp that
Yeah.
sometimes. I think that, it's really like, okay, I have to remember them. My feeling is I have to remember them every 10 minutes. Like, hey, it's an experiment.
Yeah.
Everything can go wrong. It's fine.
Yeah, that I was gonna say, yeah. And on top of all of that, the surrender of like, okay, this is not going to work. Your third line of just like, okay, we
For
tried, and
sure,
it's
yeah.
just we have to let it fall apart. And it's correct for it to fall apart mechanically, and everyone thinks, oh, once you have human design, everything's gonna work perfectly and you're gonna be happy. And it's like, no, that's not the promise. You'll live correct, but again, if correct is being homeless, then what to do.
Exactly, yeah. Especially, it's interesting, with my 25 and my desire motivation, I have this kind of priestness thing.
Yeah.
And so obviously, Vessel of Love together, I'm very much connected to community, cross of planning stuff.
Yep.
So my geometry always puts me in places where there is a lot of spirituality and woo woo and this and that. And I'm sitting there in one of those vegan cafes and restaurants, not because I like to eat vegan. I eat everything what my body likes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's often places where my body leads me, and then I'm sitting there, and then I really can sense, okay, one after the other comes to me, and I push him over the tribal barrier, kind of. That I don't have the 51, but still, my 25 is like seducing. They're like, come over here. You can do the jump, and then they turn, they do this 180, like, yeah, you're totally right. Yeah, I always thought about that, all of this spirituality and what they say and do this and be like that and namaste here and blah.
Mm,
It's so interesting, and I don't even have to say a lot. I just sit there, they ask me
yeah.
one question, and then off they go, like, oh wow.
Yeah.
So it took me
It's
some time to figure
so,
that out, but
yeah, it's so funny when I watch like the influencers that I used to follow, the yoga influencers, the spiritual, and it's just like, I am shocked by it because like I'm realizing they have no system. They have nothing that they're following, that they're talking to them, their inner authority. They have nothing. They're just like out here, as I like to say, just kind of like freeballing life without strategy and authority, and giving all this advice and giving all this like, you know, spiritual applications of just, that actually have nothing. And it's just giving more power to the mind, to everyone, to the
obviously,
thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers that they have. And it's funny to me that I used to follow them, but it's very clear that, yeah, I'm just like, where's their system that they're talking about? They're just talking about yoga. They're just talking about meditation. They're not talking about something that like actually I did that. I was the yoga teacher. I was the meditation teacher. And let's not talk about the guilt I felt as a meditation teacher who has 52 but not 9, and felt like
mm,
a failure of a meditation teacher and a fraud of like, I can't even meditate. How am I teaching people
mm,
to meditate? But I was still a good guide at that. It wasn't for me personally, even though I'm meditation sense. But it's not that controlled, sitting, forced, mental mantras. It's just like sitting and allowing things to come to you in the stillness of the mind, you know, for
absolutely.
mine, for my meditation.
I actually have an opinion about that I just
Mm,
recognized.
please share.
In my perspective, all of that is not something that should be hated or something.
Yes, true.
But we should experiment with this. Like, can we bring this to a nine-centered? Can we embed this or transform this, mutate this into the nine-centered realm? And
Yeah,
there is people who, try to connect the hexagrams to acupuncture, or they try to use sound and frequencies and connect it to different types. And I know a herbalist, and she, has a lot of data and sees, okay, all the projectors, they have this, and, there is people who try to bring this together to create fusion, synthesis, whatever you want to call it.
yeah,
So it's not like that, oh, this is all, it's not about that, but
yeah,
I can sense if this if it's purely seventh century traditional principle and you have to follow this, otherwise you will get kicked out of the tribe.
yeah,
I will straightforward go there and say, okay, kick me out of the tribe, because I will stand my ground.
yeah,
This is, I won't follow your authority. I'm sorry.
yeah,
If this hurts you, what to do?
yeah.
Maybe you should do more meditating.
Right. I mean, yeah, I completely relate to that. And it was interesting that my journey with yoga was kind of coming to a close as my human design experiment was starting to ramp up. And I thought they would be totally compatible, but they were not. And I was
Mm.
realizing, oh, wait, even yoga is doing and exercising and working out. And I was at a place where getting onto the roof, processing everything that happened in my third line phase, plus all the trauma of just like the crash at the end, and
Yeah.
I was very much in a place of not needing to do anything. And then my body, I say, injured itself and put
Mm.
me out of commission for a whole year. And then it was like literally no choice. I was in bed, couldn't move my neck, like literally couldn't, all I could do was read, couldn't use a
Wow.
computer, couldn't use a phone. I had a herniated disc right here on this, like right in this little, and yeah, it was literally physically debilitating me. And I couldn't do anything other than just sit in bed and read. And that
Mm.
was 2018, the second year of my experiment. And it was just,
Wow.
yeah, no choice. But body was just like, nope, we're done. We're done. You're shutting down. So yeah. But I was pushing, doing, working out every day and meditating every day and felt like, oh yeah, so in it, and felt like
Mm.
that was the most together that my life had ever been, but it was so not together. And I was dating someone who was super toxic and we were about to break up, and just everything was just a calamity. And so I was just like, oh, my life is so good. And then it's just like, oh wait, it's all falling apart. But
It's
human design let
crazy
me see
how
that.
blind we can be.
Yeah, when that veil is dropped and you really see, and it's just like, the life I have today in the cave with my cats, following my strategy and authority, is just a full 180 from what it was. And I can't even, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful, because as much as I thought that that was it, that was the life, no, it
Yeah, yeah.
wasn't. No, it wasn't. And it's so interesting to have clients that come to me and they're the person that's experimenting in their relationship, in their partnership, in, a family dynamic, and the other person is not. And just how you see when the veil drops for them versus like the veil is still up for the other person. It's just like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's how do you reconcile that?
That's a tricky thing.
Yeah. A lot of them end up
I don't know
moving
if a
on.
relation. Sorry.
Yeah. What were you going to say?
Uh, I would like to hear how you think what the possibility of this, is there a possibility that when no when one let's put it like this, rule 23, trying to express
Let's
something
see if
here.
we can get it.
uh, um,
It
if
feels
only
like
one
people, go ahead.
if only one lives their experiment and the other person doesn't, would you say this is a relationship that can still be fruitful? Like still, because this
No.
is also something, where I often ponder about, like, is it enough that I am myself in a world that is not self? This is a really deep thing to think about.
See, I do feel like, okay, it does feel like, yes, it's enough to be yourself in the not self world. But once you're bringing in the other into it, like I was just having this conversation with a reflector friend of mine, and she is trying to confront, trying to be, do the healthy confrontation thing. And she's trying to confront someone who also has an open solar plexus and is not in design.
Mm.
So that person, even though she's trying to confront in a correct way, that person is constantly,
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
be
yeah, yeah.
dodging, and then always going to have a mental excuse, a mental reason. And so until that person, and I've seen this in a lot of my clients, in their relationships, in their partnerships, just having that difficulty of like, okay, we're not speaking the same language anymore. And even though they're neutrally explaining what externalizing is, what soundboarding is, what emotional authority is, and the other person in the relationship, if they're not if they don't catch the human design virus. It's like they can't wait. They're always like, well,
Mm.
we talked about that, but I mean, come on, we need to make a decision now. And this is important. And they can't understand that a wave can be indefinite. You don't know when that clarity is going to come. It could be years,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah,
I've had some of my clients have called me the divorce coach because I work with people who are
yeah.
going through these, yeah, at their life cycles too, coming off the roof, getting on the roof, like they're in these huge transitions and I'm helping them correct things. And one of those things that I'm not telling them leave your partner, but I'm like saying, is it correct for your authority, for you to move
Exactly.
on? And in a lot of those cases, it has been. And it's choosing them over choosing the partnership, the relationship, what we're taught of like, okay, now you're two become one and you make all decisions together. And once you've been married or in those partnerships for such a long time, then all of a sudden the system comes along and says, no, you make your own decisions. That one of the people is going to be like, no,
Yeah, yeah.
so I've worked with a lot of people who have, I'm not going to say split because of design, but have chosen themselves and their strategy and authority over a relationship that was not correct for them, no matter how much it brought to them, and it may have been correct for them to be with that person and get those lessons or have that time with them. But yeah, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's,
I remember this one time. It was, I guess, last year spring. Um, I gave a, I don't know, 3 hour lecture about relating, uh, with a focus on intimate relationships
hmm,
and romantic relationships. And there was this one couple, and when I saw them and felt their, you know, composite, so to say, I was like, that they are together for me was, I couldn't understand that. But okay, it's not me here to run around and say something about this. It was just the feeling was so off, and I think let me try to remember. I She was a mental projector and he was a manifesting generator, if I'm not incorrect. Yeah. So they listened, and she was totally like, made so much sense to her. And then I heard 2 weeks later from somebody that they split, and I was like, in one moment I was like, okay, yeah, that's nice. And the other one was like, oh shit, maybe, I felt my open solar place like, oh, what did I do?
yeah,
But
yeah,
I think, yeah, maybe it's better.
agreed. And I've had a lot of those clients where I've given them permission, like the confirmation of their authority of like, yeah, don't feel bad. Don't feel like you have to make a decision because of a certain amount of time that you've been together. The now is extremely dense. If it's now, it's time to go. Let's go, and don't feel ashamed or don't feel bad for making a decision that's correct for you in the end,
Yeah,
which can be really hard for people. And because
absolutely.
we have these deep ties, these human connections, and so to just act like none of that has happened is of course not what I'm asking people to do, but to just like, okay, here's a good time to make a decision for yourself. Here's a good example. And I'm not going to shame you or make you feel bad one way or the other, but it's giving you permission to, it is your decision. You don't have to stay, you don't have to go, you know and people always come like, oh, here's my composite with my partner, are we going to be together forever? And I'm like, it's not about that. Like, you can't even see that in a chart. And like, here's your compromises and here's where he dominates you or you dominate them. And like, it's about the awareness that you have in that relationship. If you guys have struggled together and you can make that work, then great. But I think it was on one of your posts that I commented about the couple that I was working with, and they had their only electromagnetic was struggle. And I asked them, is there a purpose to this relationship? Crickets.
Also,
So,
why do we still use time to measure so many things in
oh,
their value? It is
I
so
know.
insane.
you
No,
know.
I will work 1 hour for you with whatever, I don't know, and you give me 1 hour of yours. It's like, no, no, that's not how it works. My hour has a completely different value than your hour.
Yes.
And
Yes.
just because a relationship is, 3 years established doesn't mean it's better than a relationship that is only for 1 week. But
Yep.
people, we still are trapped in this thinking of, yeah, a good relationship is long. No, you can have a 5 minutes relationship with somebody and it can be so blissful and so nice and so
Yeah.
rich.
Yeah. I mean, the perfect example of that is my relationships with my human design friends and people that are across the world, like yourself. And I feel like I have a deeper connection and a shared language that I could talk to you about more things than I can talk to people that I've known my whole life. Even in
Exactly.
this podcast, we can talk about things that I would never go talk to my friends about. So just, and we've known each other for it's just mostly been online. I don't know if we've ever actually had like other than voice notes and messages for years, but
I'm not
but
sure
it's
if you.
just, I don't think we have. I don't think so, other than just like the messages. But yeah, having that connection of like, okay, I've known you 3 years online. We've never met in person or talked on the phone until now, but I have more in common and more that I could talk to you about than a lot of people on this planet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So time means nothing. You heard it here first. We kind of knew that. We already knew that before. Time is nothing. I am personality gate 17. So, like, time, what is time?
What is time? Yeah. There was this beautiful kids song. It's in German, but it is a beautiful song. Where in song he says, "What is time?" Yeah, it's really nice.
I love that. I would love
Yeah,
it if you would send it to me. I'd be curious to
I
hear it.
I'll do. Maybe there's a
Yeah.
translation. It's a really cool song.
Cool. Yeah. Something else I wanted to talk to you about, a conversation that we had sort of had online, but was just such an interesting concept, the whole idea of translation and the whole idea of like keynotes in different languages and me having like a gate of translation, like gate 23 is literally translating, the insight coming through. So I've always been really interested in translating. I was a French to English translator years ago
Yeah.
and was moving to German, was going to go to Germany, and then human design smacked right into me. So I'm really curious. We had this kind of beginning of this conversation, and it's always kind of stuck with me of just like that frequency transmitted in the word rather than the specific word, because all of our keynotes are in English and you're working with translating and working in German. So, can you speak to that experience of
Yeah.
kind of finding the right word?
Okay. Obviously there are some translated books already,
Yes.
but most of them most of them I need to criticize.
Yes.
So it's not that there's one book that is translated into German where I feel like, okay, this is really human design. This is what Ra meant, what he wanted to deliver, transmit. It's often, for example, in German, when there is the word mind, we can translate this in different things. That's the tricky thing about it. So
Yeah.
I sometimes I just stick with the word because we're smart enough to figure out what that means.
Mm.
So I either say mind or I say Verstand, what is the mind, but I will never say Geist because this is spirit. But a lot of people will
Mm.
translate mind to spirit because
Mm.
there is this Christianity influence in the language of
Yep.
Roman and blah blah blah
Yep.
Latin languages. And I see this in profound books that costs, I don't know, 90 euros or more. Those errors where I'm really, yeah, where people don't get what it is about because it is not clear. It is
Yeah.
not precise anymore. It is a bit of this and a bit of that, and then your mind starts to make what it wants and cherry picks, and. So I try to, of course, like when I do a lecture in English, it takes maybe 30 minutes. In German, it would take 1 hour because I really need more time to describe. I use more describing things instead of using the word that has the frequency, because that's one of the things that I figured out works best. So
Interesting.
for example, I will use the word surrender and use the English word surrender for this and give an explanation of what this feels, what this could look like, how a person in the mundane life could experience that. Of course, generally speaking, I cannot go through all possibilities until I feel like, because I have feeling cognition 2 times in my environment and in my internal determination. I can sense like, okay, I delivered it. It came through, and then from there on, I can just use these words. I established it.
Figured out what worked.
Exactly. Yeah.
That is so interesting. It's fascinating to me because even like before human design, when I was studying French and getting into translation, and I was reading French philosophy books and like some of my favorite authors in French. And even though I wasn't fully fluent in the language, I just knew it's not correct. There's something missing in this translation. And I never believe that anything can be lost in translation with enough correct explanation. You can communicate any concept or thought. So I just thought like these are lazy translators. And I 100% feel like I've looked at some of the French texts, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd use these words. So I definitely trust you that you feel like the German ones are kind of like, oh, I'm not sure. And I'd be curious about like those projects when people were initially doing those and creating those. And it was kind of, I get the sense it was, okay, get the material out as soon as possible because there's demand growing worldwide for human design. You watch like some of those old lectures and you've got like Raw talking on one side and you've got all the translators on the other side, just kind of like, pumping out the translations of stuff. So I'm wondering how much of those books were in those initial translations that were kind of pumped out, and if people would support a rework of some of the translated books.
Mm.
Because I just have
Also,
this feeling of like translators who I wonder if they had people who were professional translators or hired out and had people who were not learning and experimenting in their design and were just kind of like regular translators trying to translate
I
frequency.
I wondered about this too. If
Hmm.
is it just somebody who translate literally just the text, or is there
Yeah.
somebody with background who actually knows what those, because there's like a kind of syntax in it, right? There's a
Yeah.
connection between how words are stringed together in a sentence that refer to something else. I mean, at least
Yep.
this is how I understand when Ra structures. You need to read the whole chapter to
Yep.
figure out what the next chapter sentence is about. It's
Yep.
really like a linear kind of
It
thing.
builds. It builds on
Yes,
itself.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you just literally translate it, there will be a lot of stuff lost. Yeah.
Lost. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'd be curious if we can if there's a way to kind of influence and create some support for this because yeah, even though English is my language and that's mostly what I teach in, I've had some French clients where I can use some French words, but I can only imagine the struggle of you being full-time dual speaker, bilingual, and having that, I don't want to call it struggle, but just kind of like constantly needing to finesse and find that balance. And you've got so much work that you're doing where you're reading the books, you're reading certain chapters. So I'd be curious if there would be support for you and yeah, to do a German translation for some of the books to start because there's so many. That's such a
I did a
huge
lot.
project.
I did a lot of translations. The first 2 years in my experiment, I
Yeah.
almost only
Mm.
focused on translating things. And I have a human design Facebook group with, I don't know, 2,500 people, and they still
Wow.
benefit from this. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of translating stuff. There's after some, I don't know, after 2 3 years, some people came in and supported by also translating stuff. Maybe not with the same obsession that I did, but still good enough.
I get that.
So yeah,
You want
but
something done right, do it yourself.
yeah, this is really something. I got much better with this, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, sometimes it's really like you know, if you would put a little bit more time and love to detail in this, it would
Yeah.
be so amazing. But yeah, you just
Yeah.
put it in a translate, Google Translate. I mean, what do you
Ugh,
expect?
yes. Like
You
real
think it?
translation takes a lot of time and effort and a lot of like mental bandwidth of like if you're doing it right versus just kind of put it out,
Yeah,
and kind of taking the
yeah.
first word rather than really sifting through the language of like what really fits here, what really works here. It's not
Yeah.
just kind of this, oh, here's just one word, you're not just, I always told people, you're not just translating word for word, you're translating concept to concept, so you've not just got to like rely on, oh, this is the word that means this word. It's like, does it still mean that word in that full context? So you
It's
get it.
recreating photos, recreating images, right?
Yeah.
Like sets of from our movies. Like, okay, this is this kind of scene, and how can I recreate this with what I have in my luggage?
Yeah.
Like, okay, is there the tools? Is there everything I need to how close can I get to this? Maybe it's never 100%, but
Yeah.
let's try to be as close as possible, right?
Yeah.
Also, there's a very interesting thing because I do cross readings, like I read English and German and see what is there,
Mm,
and also listening to
same.
English. I read the books in English, and I also read the translations because
Yep.
maybe there is something more for me.
Yep.
And also I listen to the originals when I can get them from Ra
Yeah.
and read to the transcriptions. There's a lot of mistakes in the transcriptions.
Yes, there are. Channel of Judgment can confirm. Yes, there are. He said
There's
second
even
color when he meant second line. Like there's a lot
there's
of little,
sometimes minutes just cut off that are so important.
and yeah. Yeah. And then there's like the audio sounds and like the disruptions and the breaks and yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
It's,
tricky business.
yeah. When we're trying to sort through all of like these ancient archived
uh, but I love it. I
cassettes,
still love
and I
it.
know it's kind of fun. It's kind of like uncovering like a mystery, and every time like
Yeah.
Richard Beaumont just released a new video and there's like more content, I'm like, oh, new raw.
Yeah, yeah.
So it
Digital
does have that like,
archaeology, so to say.
yes, oh, that's a really good way to put it. Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And people have like pictures that like, oh, here's all these CDs, here's all these cassettes. I just found these books from the first generation. It's like, oh, this is so cool. And it's like
Nice.
the 90s. But we've pretty much been on this planet at the same time. I was born in 1987, you're in 1988. So we've been here the whole time. The human design has been with us. So that feels,
And can you imagine that it was so close to where I lived, where Ra did the most stuff?
I
And I never
know.
heard about it. Never.
It's
I never heard
crazy.
about it.
Yeah,
For
it's
me, that was the most shocking thing. It's like I was like, how can this be? I knew all of the systems. I knew all
yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
I'm a 1-3, and my parents are artists and spiritual freaks. I knew
Mm,
all of it. We had every DVD you can imagine about, from the States, everywhere. I had so many friends in the barracks who got me stuff that I couldn't get in Germany, but I never heard of that. Never. It's like,
wow.
man, that's impossible because Munich and Frankfurt both is very close to where I have been born.
Yeah.
It's just around my hometown, so to say. I mean,
Yeah.
some hours, but still, it's nothing.
Yeah.
So it's really, really strange.
Yeah. I mean, I was in LA, so it feels like it's correct that it didn't reach that, but like still knowing all the systems, had astrology, had Enneagram, had Myers-Briggs. So it made sense that that system was only going to come to me. We were headed for it anyways. Right. But yeah, the fact that just all that time and then never hearing about it, never knowing, and then all of a sudden just bam, it's
Just was
amazing.
there. Yeah.
And it's crazy now that I live in Santa Fe to hear about the times that the only times Raw came to the States in the early days. He came to Taos. He came to New Mexico first. He, had been in Santa Fe. He had been around here. On some of the audios, he's complaining about waking up with like dirt in his ears because it's so dusty around here. And I'm just like, he was here. And
He
I
knows the
didn't.
struggle.
Yeah, yeah. And he's shores. It's very dry up here, very mountainy. So obviously he was struggling, but you could hear him talking about it and kind of like complaining and joking about it. But still, just, oh, yeah, I think it's so cool that he was here. Now I'm here. And that's not why I'm here, but I'm like, that's pretty crazy that it worked out
Feels
like that.
aligned, huh?
Right? Right. Oh, man. Okay, well, I think that feels complete. That feels like this has been such a great conversation. And I'm so glad we got to do this. And I feel like I've wanted to talk to you for so long, but you're busy. I'm busy. But like, this is fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on here, Talis. I super appreciate it.
Thank you
And
for the
you
invitation.
are the wise fool who's amazing to just talk to and have this, you've got that wisdom. And I, like I said at the beginning, I don't see a lot of other mental projectors embodying that mental projector-ness. And I'm just like, correct. I have nothing, no pressure to correct. So the more
Thank you
people
very
that like,
much.
the less pressure I have to correct someone, the more I'm just like, I just want to know what you're doing. I want to take in your content. I want to watch you. And, so it's a compliment from my design to yours.
Yeah, this goes out to all my fallen angels and lifestyle junkies, anger boys and girls. Let's go. I'm a projector, come on invite me, and I advise ya, coordinate and guide ya. Hey, I'm a projector, you recognize me, and I will guide ya to success through the endless night. Here we go again, let me see your chart and even those of all your friends. I'm a hobby coach, can't you see that I wear a super slave coat with a lot of fur made from my north south soul, goddamn fluffy like a bookshelf. Haha, did you get it? I'm just joking and provoking while I'm choking on my open throat, and I don't even know as I'm only going with the flow. No invitation, there's no way I'll jump and go, sliding through life like a motorboat, if that makes sense. And did I already mention that I'm a projector? Come on invite me, and I advise ya, coordinate and guide ya. Hey, I'm a projector, you recognize me, and I will guide ya to success through the endless night. Bitterness is not included, also prepare to pay a huge amount of the money. Open center wisdom is better than crack. What you waiting for? There's only one P for every G-I-N-V-I-T-A-T-I-O-N. Invitation, bitch.